What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lettermen Row. I'm Spencer Holbrook. We got another new face on the screen today. Last week we talked to Blue and Gold, Tyler Horka about Notre Dame. This week we're going to break down Arkansas State with Mitchell Gladstone. Mitchell, how are you doing today? Can you tell the people a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I am the Arkansas State reporter for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, based here in Little Rock. So I'll have to spend lots of time hitting up on the road, going up to Jonesboro, and yeah, really excited to make my first trip to Columbus, see Ohio State in for the first time, and see what should be an interesting game, although perhaps not close.
So let's get into that. I mean, you said interesting. In what ways is this Arkansas State offense, when you talk about James Blackman, former Florida State quarterback, a couple of former, Power Five guys on that side of the ball, including Brian Snead, the former Ohio State running back, familiar name for Ohio State fans. What makes this offense interesting, and what might give Ohio State some trouble when you talk about this Arkansas State offense?
What makes the Arkansas State offense interesting is that number one, this is a program that has a history. I mean, there is a level of expectation here. Arkansas State won numerous Sun Belt titles in the 2010s. So, the last couple of years, 4-7 season in 2020, and then 2-10 in 2021. Those are exceptions. Those are exceptions to the rule. And so this is a team that's building back. Like you said, James Blackman is a guy, 6-year quarterback, started at Florida State, played 4 years there, very much an up and down career. But he's now got some continuity, having head coach in Butch Jones and offensive coordinator Keith Heckendorf, the same two guys for the first time in his entire collegiate career. And he's a guy that looks a whole lot different. And then, like you said, they've got a pair of running backs, Power Five guys, Johnny Lang, who was at Iowa State, Brian Snead, who was at Ohio State for 3 games before being suspended, kicked off the team, kicked out of school, going to JUCO and Austin P, and now is at Arkansas State. So you've got those two running backs, and then they've got they're still piecing together their passing game, and it's all behind a young offensive line. But really, James Blackman is the key to this offense. If Arkansas State's going to do anything against Ohio State, or really this season, it's on him. And he's a guy that just looks vastly improved. He's more comfortable with the offense. He's getting more and more confident in his O line, although they're young. But he seems more comfortable, sitting back in the pocket, letting the game come to him. And Arkansas State is a team that, their defense is what it is. It's still building. It was really, really bad last year. It's getting better this year, but they need their offense to go. So, if they're going to be competitive in games, it's probably going to be because they're putting up, 30, 40, 50 points, especially like they did last week, although against the FCS opponent.
Yeah, so you see that big number. I think it was 58 last week, and you say, oh well, maybe they're onto something. Maybe Ohio State might have a little bit of trouble. Now, I'm not going to ask you what your scouting report of the Ohio State Notre Dame game was, but are there areas where you could see this Arkansas State offense trying to have some success against what Ohio State does defensively?
Yeah, well, what I think it's going to be, and it's funny. I wanted to watch more of that Ohio State Notre Dame game. I was covering my own game at the time, so I didn't get to catch as much of it I would have liked. I think the big thing, like we said, we're talking about these two running backs. Arkansas State was bad running the ball last year, and I think it got sort of covered up by the fact that their defense was so bad, and it sort of flew under the radar. But they were third to last in rush yards per game last season. It was bad. It was a product of not a ton of talent in that running back room, but also a really, really bad offensive line. And so this group is, much more talented in the running back room. They're going to use Johnny Lang a lot more. Brian Snead, we can talk about his pass if we want, but he's a guy that has just a ton of skill. He was a top 100 recruit in his class. Obviously, he had this, the talent to be at Ohio State, and they really complement each other. So what I think you're going to see is Arkansas State they committed to running the ball early. Obviously, you can do that against Grambling State, a team that was just bad. They were really, really bad. But I think Arkansas State is going to continue to try to commit to the run early and use the run to set up what they do. They have, two really good pass catching tight ends and sophomores, Emmanuel Stevenson, Seydou Traore. And so those guys, the wide receiver room is a little bit sketchy at the moment. But they're going to use those guys in the passing game. And so I think it's really, really important if Arkansas State's going to do anything at any point this season that they have to sort of, I hate to, go to the cliche, but it really is establish the run. I mean, they need a running game to open things up for the passing game.
So now we flip to the other side of the ball where Ohio State is supposed to have one of the most explosive offenses in the country this year. We did not see that against Notre Dame just because of wide receiver injuries and the way the game played out. I think the Buckeyes might try to open it up a little bit more this week and make sure everybody knows that passing game's not broken. What is the what's the is the book out? Is the jury out on this Ohio or on this Arkansas State defense yet? And what do you see from that unit that makes you think, not makes you think they're going to have success against Ohio State, but what do you see from them? I guess.
Well, I guess it starts. Well, first off, personally, I can't. I'm not expecting it at this point, but I would love to see Jackson Smith and Jigga back. I covered him when I was down in Texas, and he was one of my favorite players to watch in high school. So I'd love to see him on the field this week personally. But look, Ohio State has a ton of receivers, and I think that's where the biggest challenge is for Arkansas State. I mean, their secondary is still coming together. There was basically sort of they've got a true sophomore at one of the safety spots. They had a sort of 4 or 5 man battle for quarterbacks, and I think that's still a little bit unsettled, although they found their 2 starters, and I think that's who will be the same this week. Now, what they do have is they have added guys at each level of defense. So they brought in Eddie Smith, who was a guy that started at Alabama, went to Illinois last year. He's playing safety. He's given them a lot of stability there. They brought in a middle linebacker, Jordan Carmouche, who played his 4 years at Houston. He came in and he's now taken over that Mike linebacker spot. And then Kevon Bennett is a guy who was here last year, started at Tennessee under Butch Jones, was going to actually move from defensive end to outside linebacker this year, but he's staying at defensive end, at least for now. And so they have, solid guys at each level of the defense. But look, like we said, that unit was second to last in total offense last year, behind only my alma mater, Duke. So it was fun following that. They're still coming together, and I think that Ohio State's just going to find ways to just torture this defense, and I'm sure Rob Harley, great nephew of Ohio State legend Chick Harley, does not want to see that happen to his defense. But I think he is going to have some real issues on his hands, dealing with an offense that is far more explosive than I think anything, far more, and not even really close to anything Arkansas State has seen within the last, year plus.
So that's interesting, the connection there with Chick Harley and Rob Harley. So I don't think that'll have any bearing on the game. Just an interesting note. I like that. Thank you. The viewers like this kind of stuff. They like the notes. So
there will be a fuller story coming out later this week. So I'll plug my Twitter feed at the end. But you can I got to talk to it's really really cool, and the story is kind of fascinating on Chick Harley of basically being gone for 70-ish years from Ohio, 75-ish years from Ohio State history, then coming back. And it's pretty cool. Look, it's not Rob Harley's first time back in the shoe since being a walk-on safety there. He's been a commentator there. He was an assistant at Michigan State. So I don't think he's going to be necessarily overwhelmed by the moment of coming back, but it's pretty cool that in the 100th year of Ohio Stadium, Chick Harley's great nephew will be coaching.
In the house that Harley built. That's kind of cool. Yeah. So, all right, let's go one more, and then we'll get some score predictions and get you out of here. Butch Jones, no Ohio State fan is really keeping an eye on Jonesboro as to whether Butch Jones is going to, how that tenure is going, But we've got you. I might as well ask. Butch Jones, former Tennessee coach. Everybody knows his past. What is the feelings on Butch Jones in Jonesboro right now, and what can he do this year to maybe turn the tide a little bit on the way his tenure has gone?
So here's what I'll say about Butch Jones. Look, number one is, you look at where he's been in the past, Central Michigan, Cincinnati. He was only there for 3 years apiece, following Brian Kelly at both spots. Brian Kelly went to Cincinnati, so that's when Butch took over at Central Michigan, and then he went to Notre Dame, and Brian Kelly, Butch Jones followed to Cincinnati. And Butch Jones was a really, really good recruiter. He recruited well at Central Michigan. He got J.J. Watt. I think he got J.J. Watt and Antonio Brown there. He had the Kelseys at Cincinnati. He did a really good job recruiting at Tennessee. Obviously, he had issues winning games in the SEC, which is a different story. But in essentially not even 2 years here at Arkansas State, he's really done a great job recruiting. I mean, they had, I think, the number one or number two at class in the Sun Belt this year, depending on what rankings you look at. He's doing, they've got a clear plan. They're wanting to build through high school guys, which is something that the previous regime did not. And so, from a recruiting perspective, I think he's got that unlocked. The question is, can he coach? Can he really build a team, build a program, and sustain it? I mean, his longest stop was 4+ seasons at Tennessee. I think if he has vision back to a Power Five job, it's going to take at least 4 years to build this program here at Arkansas State. I don't think maybe they compete for a Sun Belt title next year, but it probably takes at least 4 years. So he's going to need time to get back to what he's doing. I think he's doing the right things in terms of coaching, but at the end of the day, so much of it is result based. So you have to see them, continue to win games. I think, I predict them at 5 wins this season. I think 4 or 5 wins is a really good step. If they get back to bowl eligibility this year, that would be definitely punching above their weight and probably faster than a lot of people expected. And I think that would start to really get some excitement back in Jonesboro, which is a place that really cares about Arkansas State and the program. But at the end of the day, like, I got to see it, and that's sort of where I am. Is this team? This team needs to win. Butch Jones needs to prove that he's building something tangible. And as recruiting rankings are great and a culture is great, but you got to win.
So Butch certainly won't be judged based on what happens Saturday in the Horseshoe at noon on Big Ten Network. We know that to be true. The spread is massive. I'm actually a little surprised that it is what it is, but Vegas knows more than I do. So let's talk about it. I think it's at 44.5 or 45, depending on where you can get it. Folks, by the way, shop around. There's plenty of books out there. Find your number. I think we both are on the same page. Gambling guys, find your number. So let's just get to it. Arkansas State plus 45 or Ohio State minus 45?
So my view is, I think that you look at it. It's early in the season. You saw it last year. Arkansas State went to Washington, and I think it was 28-0 at halftime, and then it sort of settled down. I think it was like 24-3 in the second half or something like that. The question is really, essentially, how much does Ohio State jump on Arkansas State, in the first half? I mean, you might see, what I would say is, you see them jump on it and the spread goes way up. Okay, then maybe take the points because it'll come back down in the second half. If that's the case, I think Arkansas State's going to find a way through the back door potentially. So 44, 45 just seems like so much, especially for a game in the early season when, like I said, you might want to see some guys get in at the end of the game, rotate through, and use one of those games since you can this now with the new redshirt rule, or relatively new redshirt rule. So my prediction, I think I put it down 49-10. I think Arkansas State wants to get their new kicker a field goal, so I'm giving him a field goal. He's a true freshman, so I think I thought they were going to do it last week, but they didn't. So 49-10. It might be through the back door, it might not. But I think that second straight week Ohio State just barely can't cover.
Yep.
So I think that's what I'm going at, 49-10 Ohio State.
All right. Well, everybody can wait patiently because I don't give my score prediction until Friday on the bold predictions video. But that's just the way we do things here at Lettermen Row. Mitchell, thank you so much for joining me. Excited to be back in the Horseshoe Saturday. Excited to meet you as you come up to Columbus. If you need any recommendations on food, I'm sure the people in the comments of this video would love to help you out there. But for Mitchell, I'm Spencer. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on the Lettermen Lounge. You can get Lettermen Row right now for $1 for an entire year. That's a pretty good deal. And you can go read all of Mitchell's work. Mitchell, can you tell the folks where to find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at MP Gladstone, Gladstone. Or you can check me out, and that's on Twitter. And you can also check out all of our content at arkansasonline.com. That's the home of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
All right, sounds good. For Mitchell, I'm Spencer. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time.